Well, ladies and gentlemen, regardless of where we came from or what our background was, to have a chance to achieve all your dreams, you simply have to believe. Now, for many of us who grew up in a small town, we all reach a point where we say, if I stay here, is this all there is? What if I want more? What options and alternatives do I have so I can achieve something and thrive in my life? Well, these are some of the questions that a very young, intelligent, and ambitious Trisha Stetzel faced. So let's meet her. Let me tell you a little bit about Trisha. She's a Navy veteran. Now, she leveraged the skills she learned in the military, and she is now a very successful co-owner with her husband, Dennis, and the company is Results Extreme Business Solutions, and they're in Houston, Texas. Now, Trisha is a contributing author to my upcoming book, Business Secrets from the Battlefield to the Boardroom. Now, this book will be available near the end of March, and it is stories by veterans, by veteran spouses, by their children, and parents and supporters. So this is something you want to get. So Trisha, welcome to Life Altering Events.
Thank you, Frank. I really appreciate the opportunity to come on your show and tell a little bit about my story.
This is wonderful. I've met Trisha at a couple of events, and I see her on a call most every Friday. And this is pretty amazing. So, Trisha, tell the people a little bit about your childhood growing up in your little town in Texas, as you call it.
Yeah, I'll do that. So I like to say that I came from humble beginnings, right? So I grew up in a little town south of Dallas. I spent most of my elementary, middle school life in DeSoto, and in junior high, we moved to Red Oak, which is a pretty small town. Albeit I think I graduated with 167 kids in my high school, just to give you a little idea of what that looks like. And, there wasn't much there, Frank. When we moved there in my junior high, it was my 8th grade year, there was a fruit stand and a flashing red light. We had one gas station, I think. There wasn't a whole lot there. And it was definitely a grocery store, because that's where a lot of the kids my age went to work, was at the grocery store. So I really enjoyed growing up there and being in the country. I love animals. It was something that was near and dear to my heart. However, when it was time to graduate from high school, there wasn't a lot there. I did receive a small academic scholarship, which was a leadership scholarship from one of the junior colleges nearby. And I was afforded the opportunity to go to school there for 4 semesters, knowing that the money was going to run out. I was trying to figure out what I would do next. I was not only going to school full time, but I was also working 3 jobs. I know some of you can relate to this, right? Just trying to get through it, trying to do the thing. And from there, I decided that I would call the Air Force recruiter, and I left a message. And I called the Navy recruiter and I left a message. And lo and behold, the Navy recruiter called me back. So that is how the Navy happened in the first place. Talked to the recruiter, did the thing. For those of you who have been in the military and gone through the ASVAB, you understand exactly how the process works. For those civilians out there who may not understand what that looks like, is you go through a full process of being tested for your aptitude. What things are you good at? What things may you be weak at? And they found that I was really, my aptitude was in the computer space, in the IT space. So following that line, continue to pursue that. You have to go through a bunch of medical screening and those sorts of things. Well, my mom was not very happy. I didn't mention that I'm an only child. Most people don't know that about me, because I'm very good at sharing. So it was about 6 months. I was in the delayed entry program. So it's about 6 months between when I signed and when I left. And it was for a 6-year commitment. They offered me a job in the crypto space, and we can get into that in a few minutes. But really, that's where it all began, and here's just a funny little side Trisha story. I always had hair like this, for those of you who are watching this show. And as the weeks went by between the time I signed and when I actually left for the military, it got shorter and shorter and shorter. And I actually had a flat top before I went to boot camp. And I wore that for a very long time. But those are really the humble beginnings for us. And I think, Frank, for me, looking back as a young child and thinking about counting quarters to buy milk and bread and those sorts of things, right? I had always wanted more for my life. And I really felt like the military was going to be that thing for me.
Went in, and there weren't a lot of women going into the military then. When you got to basic training in school, how did that feel when you come in and you're one of just a few women?
Yeah. So in basic, it didn't feel as awkward as it did when I went to A school, which was really electronics specific. So boot camp, we went to boot camp with all women. There were 86 other women in my boot camp group, if you will. And it was very interesting for me. I hadn't traveled a lot or been outside of my little space. So meeting women from all over, different ages, right? I was only 19 when I went in, and some of these women were almost 30. So we had a pretty broad range. We did really form this bond. Another interesting thing about boot camp, Frank, I never thought that I was a leader, but you heard me say I got a leadership scholarship, right? Mm-hmm. And I don't know where that came from. And when I was in boot camp, I was asked to be the RCPO, which means that I led the entire boot camp group of 86 women. And it's not something that I asked for. I was never one of those girls that was like, me, pick me. I was just recognized as a leader. And I think that those opportunities have really helped propel me into some positions that I've been able to hold over the years, and even now in the business that Dennis and I own. So moving into A school and really being in a man's world, going through that electronics school, right? It was interesting, but I guess I found comfort there. And interestingly, as I've grown and matured over the years, I have continued to work in a male dominated space up until just recently, whether it was in the military, corporate, or even moving into business. I always worked in that space. I guess I found comfort there.
Now, I'm willing to bet most people don't know what a cryptologist is or what they do. Mm-hmm. So kind of enlighten us.
Yeah. So, Frank, if I told you, I'd have to kill you. I'm just kidding. I'm kidding, everyone. So it was my job to take care of the equipment of those who were keeping us safe. We had people that were linguists. We had people that were listening on receivers and other types of devices. And it was my job to make sure that those devices stayed in check and in tune. I mostly worked in communication centers. You'd think as a Navy person that I would have been on a ship, and that is not the case. Cryptologists do not typically go on ships. I was stationed after my long stint in Florida, Pensacola, to be specific. After my long stint there, my first duty station was Okinawa, Japan, where I worked in the communications center and met my husband, by the way. I think we'll talk about that in a few minutes. He was a yeah. And then from there, I did time. Some people would say that, right, about being in the military. I served in Hawaii, which was a really nice duty station as well, with other branches, which was rather neat. So I was not only afforded the opportunity to be a part of something really amazing, but I got to work with other branches of the military. The Marines, the Air Force, and the Army were all at both duty stations.
So the Navy invested hundreds of thousands of dollars in your training in multiple months. And this is something that always blows me away about when you leave the military. So at a very young age, you're entrusted with millions of dollars of the most elite and technical products in the world. And then you get out, and then what happens? You went into the corporate world. What kind of opportunities were available when you got out?
Wow, Frank, that was a very, very strange time. So when I got out, it was 1998 when I got out of the military. And by the way, for you young kids out there watching this show, we did not have access to computers in our houses. So it wasn't like we could just reach out and search for jobs from Hawaii, right? Moving back to the continental United States. Dennis had been out for 2 years before I finished. So I did a total of 8 years. Dennis was in for 6 years. And thank gosh for the military, Frank, because I would have never met Dennis. We've been together for, we're going on 32 years now, which is amazing that we've always done the same job. So back to this story of what opportunities were available. We were looking in the tech space. We weren't real sure how our training translated to the real world. We had never been out there. We didn't know what was available. So we started applying to tech companies because we knew that we could maybe fake our way through working on a real computer, which if anybody has worked in the tech space in the military, the equipment that we work on is a little bit older and maybe a little bit further behind than what's happening in the real world. So we started applying to these tech companies and we got a call back. Dennis was going to be in town. This is a funny story. Dennis was going to be in town. We decided we were going to move to the Chicagoland area because they had the best job market. So it was either his hometown or my hometown. And Chicago won over Dallas. So he was going to be in town. He went on an interview with Tech Systems and he got us both jobs. I wasn't even there.
Wow.
So he got us both jobs. We got out of the military. We thought we were like, rich kids getting out of the military, getting these high paying tech jobs. And we ended up working for Tech Systems for I think it was about 6 months before the contract we were on with IBM, they hired us. And we both got hired to IBM at the same time as well.
Wow. I grew up in Buffalo, New York, and I spent a lot of time in Chicago. What's it like Chicago winters for a Texas girl?
Frank, you've probably heard me say this before. We lived there for 5 long winters. That is how I know exactly how long we were there. It's a beautiful place and it was a great place to raise a kid. We lived in Naperville, Illinois, which a lot of people are familiar with, and it was the most kid-friendly town, I think 2 years before we moved there. Our son was able to go to elementary school and junior high there. He started high school. It was an amazing place to raise a kiddo, but it was just way too cold for me. And I will say this, my husband is the one that loves to continue to move further south because he doesn't like it anymore either.
I tell people all the time, and they say, "You're from Buffalo." And I said, "That's why I'm here in California. It's too tough."
That's right, Frank.
Now, like many of us, Trisha, when you've been in the military, you're used to having a lot of responsibility at a very, very young age. You go to corporate world, and it's not that way. And we get disillusioned with it. And then you started your own entity. What was that transition?
Yeah, so the corporate space was interesting for me, Frank. So I spent about 10 years working for IBM. And because I was a woman, since we've been talking about that, and it's very important, although it was very male dominated in the space that I was in, because again, I was in the IT services space. And it was highly male dominated, but I was afforded a lot of opportunities as a woman. IBM is very forward thinking in raising the bar when it comes to women and helping them excel. So I was able to move from a technician into a management space, second level manager, before I decided to leave. And so I had a lot of opportunity to lead people, which is what I love. That's my true passion, is helping people succeed and do the things that they want to do, not just in work, but in life, but be very successful. And I think that's so important. So over those 10 years, I was able to move into positions where I was affecting other people in the business. And that was huge for me. Now, at the end of my tenure, I was not able to do that anymore. As with a lot of corporate entities, we start to remove jobs from us and outsource our labor and do those sorts of things. And I, that was not where my passion lied. So that's when I decided to leave corporate and open my own business. My first business I opened in 2008. I have been an entrepreneur ever since, never worked for anybody but myself. That first business that I opened was in the animal care space. Remember, I said I was really into animals when I was a young person. I still own that business today, Frank. A lot of people don't know that. So I've had that business for 14 years, and I spend a little bit of time in that business, but I have a manager that runs it and a really great staff, and great pet sitters out there serving the community through that business. And then Dennis decided it was his turn to step back from corporate, and he was looking at the coaching space. This was back in 2015. And I was looking for, something else to do because I had bought, sold, merged, failed, succeeded at a few other businesses along the way. And so I told Dennis that I would help him get his business set up. And as he went through this process of figuring out how he wanted to integrate himself and become a business coach, I started to see that may be something that I was interested in. So my little story is one of the certifications that he went to become a business coach. I went with him as a spouse, and I came home as a business coach. So be careful where you take your spouse because you just never know what might happen. Here's the thing, Frank, I never thought about becoming a coach until I was right there engrossed in the middle of role play and really understanding what a business coach does. And what I realized on that second day is that I could affect so many more people in our community by serving those who serve clients versus just serving one client at a time, which is what I had always done as an entrepreneur, even thinking back, right, to corporate and the Navy. I was always serving one client at a time, where in business coaching, my gosh, if I'm serving those who are serving clients, my impact on the community is huge. I fell in love with it. I jumped in with both feet, and I've been doing it ever since. And I just love the impact that Dennis and I have on the community through this business that we decided to pursue back in 2015.
Wow. When you send me your story, one of the things you said was that I just got a kick out of it, because I've heard it from so many women business owners, is stay away from the 5-word kiss of death. Do you remember that? The 5-word kiss of death.
Frank, 5-word kiss of death. Stay away from, I'll just do it myself. That will lead me into my chamber story as well, which is how we got here, right? And writing this book and getting to know you. And man, I think as military veterans, one of the things that we do quite often is we just figure it out. We don't need any help. We don't need any support. We're just going to go figure it out. And you know what, Frank? Most of the time we do. We absolutely do, because that's what we've been taught. That's what was ingrained in us, is we're just going to go figure it out. So when I got out of corporate and I went and opened my own business, do you think I asked for help? Nope. Do you think I raised my hand and said, I need some support? Can you help me with this? No, I sure didn't. Do you think I even told anybody I was a veteran? I didn't, Frank. And it wasn't because I was embarrassed of it. I had just lost that identity when I left the military and joined corporate. And I spent 10 years in corporate. I had lost that veteran identity up until I found the chamber almost 2 years ago. Well, it'll be 2 years ago in April. And what I have found is if you just quit thinking in your mind and saying out loud, I'll just do it myself. There are so many people out there that want to support you. And it's not a handout. I think that's what people are afraid of, veterans particularly. It's not a handout. People want to support you. They don't want to give you things. They want to support you on your way to being successful. It is absolutely okay to announce that you're a veteran because there are so many resources out there. So when I came on board with the chamber, I think Dave tells me I was member number 5. I think Dennis and I were members number 5 and 6 when we came in. I found this passion, Frank, for going out and finding these people who have not been telling people that they're veterans, and they own businesses. That's what this chamber is out there doing, is supporting veterans who own businesses. It's not about handouts. It's about supporting each other and helping guide you to the support that you deserve. My gosh, you sacrificed time in the service for this United States of America. You deserve a little bit of support. It's okay to step forward, raise your hand, announce that you're a veteran, and let people help you, support you, or guide you, because that is out there and it's huge. It's huge in my heart. I see so many young people, even, Frank, young people who just got out of the military 6 months ago. They don't tell people that they're veterans and they're opening businesses. We've got to get them to be okay with that. So one of the things I like to tell people now is not only am I a veteran, I'm a wife of a veteran, I'm a daughter of a veteran, and I am also a mother of a veteran. And I never used to tell people that, not because I was embarrassed, but because I didn't identify with it. And I do now because it's important.
You hit that dead on, Trisha. I was dealt with a lot of veteran organizations throughout my life, and that's one of the things that I often don't feel we fit in. We often don't feel that people can relate to what we're doing. Now, one of the things that I love that you're doing with the Houston Regional Veterans Chamber of Commerce, look at the name right here, is educating employers. Because I've never met anyone who's ever said, I don't want to help a veteran, but they don't know how. So how are you helping them understand it?
Yeah. And Frank, we speak the same language. You know, when you've been there, you have, even in the Air Force, there's a different jargon than in the Navy, than in the Marine Corps, than in the Air Force, but we still have that overlying language that each of us understands, right? There may be a little jargon underneath based on what branch you are in, but we all understand that. And I think that's important. Listen, when you're in the military, you become part of a team. You're part of a small team, you're part of a big team, you're part of a great big team. And that's what you're used to. You're used to that camaraderie. You're used to that support. It's not because you asked for it, it's because it's built in to being a part of that team in the military. When you get out of the military, that's not there anymore, especially in corporate. Where's the team? Nope, you're on your own. You got to figure it out. And then when you go and open your own business and I'll just do it myself, you don't have anybody around you. How are you going to get that help? Right. So what Dennis and I are doing inside of the chamber is offering education back to our veteran business owners. They don't have to be certified. They don't have to carry any kind of certification. They just need to identify, show us your DD 214. You're a veteran, you own a business. Let's help you get educated around that. So the last 2 years we've spent helping guide these veterans through basic business courses. We're teaching them how to come in with the right mindset. We're teaching them how to communicate not only internally with their employees, but externally with their clients and customers. We're teaching them how to build their one-page plan. metrics, building a dashboard, how you find your ideal client, sales, and what's getting in your way, right? What is that constraint that's getting in the way of you getting to the next step? It's just about teaching them the basics right now, Frank. And I know we've talked to you and several others in the chamber that also have education bits that we can give back to the community. And we're going to start implementing those this year. Now that we're maturing, we can start adding to that business education and that mindset education, that communication education that we can give back to our veterans. And I don't know if you can tell, it's probably coming across, but I'm so passionate about this space because I didn't have that. And I just want to get in everybody's face and say, you know what? We have it and you need it. So let's just do this together. Right. And it's not about a handout. It's about supporting each other for the greater good.
It's absolutely the case. I saw so many veterans. I was deputy director for the Veteran Business Outreach Center for a while in Northern California. And I talked to so many veterans and they would say, I'm really good at this, so I'm going to start a business. And I said, but that's this much. Now, how do you set up a business? How do you run a business? And that's exactly what Trisha and Dennis do, ladies and gentlemen. So these are people, if you're in the Houston area, or even if you're not in the Houston, these are people you need to know. They're that good. Well, we're just about out of time here. Trisha, what last words do you want to leave with the audience?
All right, Frank, I'm going to say I'll just do it myself. Take it out of your vocabulary. Here's a lesson that I've carried with me for many years. It's called the law of self-control. And it starts with the words that we use, the things that we're telling ourselves, whether it's internal language or external language, it all starts there. So the language that you use matters. The way that you talk to yourself matters because that leads to what we believe and how we feel. Words matter, whether it's internal or external. So those lead to feelings and beliefs, which lead to your actions, which eventually lead to the results. So positive or negative, that's what you're going to see in the results. So keep that language positive to yourself and even the language you use with others, and you will end up with positive results. And that is the best lesson that I have learned in many, many years, Frank.
Well, folks, this is somebody you need to listen to. She has been an entrepreneur for a long time. She's extremely successful. And with this Houston's Veteran Chamber of Commerce, they're reaching out and bringing veterans in and training them, but also reaching out to the employers to make sure the employers understand why you should hire them, what the values they bring. So, wow. As I said, we're just about out of time, Trisha. I want to thank you very much for all your insight and input. If you want to read Trisha's story, it's going to be in the book From Business Secrets in the Battlefield to the Boardroom. It'll be out in March. And there'll be several other stories along with this. Now, you can see this show on ROKU TV, or you can see it on my YouTube channel, which is Frank Zaccari, very basic. And I will send links to Trisha, and she'll post it to all the places where she puts out her information. If you use the YouTube channel, please subscribe. Now, let me leave you with this, as I do every week. None of us are in this alone. And the secret to walking on water is to know where the rocks are. And today, Trisha showed us where many of those rocks are. Join us again next week for another life-altering event. Trisha, thank you so much.
Thank you, Frank. I appreciate the opportunity.